Carol was on, but she seems to have disappeared.
Saw that as well.
So Alicia, I just want to double check. I just saw your email. So we're popping on that link. Is that?
No, we're starting here, Ralph, because you have to start with an open meeting. And then we vote to go into exec. And when we go into exec, we'll go to a
Okay.
different link.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I wonder if Carol dropped off so that she could. I bet you she didn't hear me.
Yeah. Because we'll need her back. Well, I have 3. It's a quorum, but
This is her.
so. So
You should. We're recording and on YouTube, so you should be able to start if
okay
you
to
want.
start? Yeah, okay. Well, good evening. It's the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting, February 13th, 2025. This meeting is entirely electronic due to the winter storm that's going on. It's just not, we don't need to have extra people on the highway tonight. It's just not safe. So I'm calling the meeting to order. There is a no anchor site letter describing what I just said. And I'm not going to read it, but it's there. The roll, I'm going to call the roll. So I'm just doing it in the order that I'm seeing on the screen. So Ralph.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chris.
Here.
Jonathan.
Also here.
Okay. Bob is excused. He's flying an airplane. And we will pick up Carol at some point. But we do have a quorum, so we can continue. The first piece of business tonight is that we need to go into exec to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, personnel matters, deployment of security personnel, devices or systems, and or sale or acquisition of real property as needed. And I would need a motion from someone to do that.
Motion?
Is that Ralph?
Yeah.
Thank you. Need a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. All right. And then I'm going to poll the council members present to do that. So Jonathan,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
A motion carries. We're going to drop off. I mean, you can keep it on this one or log out and then log back in on the new link that was sent to you on the Zoom. So we'll talk to you in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Alicia. It's Chris.
Hi there.
Thanks for sharing your screen. So the mayor informed us as we were closing executive that he would not be joining the regular meeting.
Okay. Oh,
Do we need to take attendance again?
it's a Polly question.
No, you don't.
Let me just make sure that we're still, I know we're still streaming, but let me make sure we're still recording. I'll stop sharing. Yep. I think we've got everybody back. So I think you can start whenever you want.
Hey, thanks, Alicia. I started sharing the agenda. Can you guys see it?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so this is the resumption of the Hideout Town Council regular meeting at 7 p.m. And Polly, you said we don't have to take attendance again?
That's correct. We don't.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to start with item 4, public input. So the floor is open for any member of the public to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Alicia, can you remind us how to participate?
You bet. So if you would like to speak, just raise your hand either by using the controls through Zoom, or you can push *9 on your phone, and then we'll, when we unmute you, then you can do *6 and it will unmute.
All right, I'm looking. I don't see any hands up. Okay, going once. Going twice. Last chance for anyone to raise your hand to be unmuted for public input. Okay, well, with that, we'll close public input. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to section 5 of the agenda. At number 1, this is the introduction of Trudy Brereton with Jordanelle Communities Coalition. Alicia, will you unmute Trudy for us? Okay, Trudy, it looks like you're unmuted.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you able to hear me? Okay, good. So Trudy Brereton, I'm with Wasatch Behavioral Health, and I've been working with Jan and some other organizations and communities for about the last 9 months to form a coalition in the Hideout and Jordanelle areas. So we've named it the Jordanelle Communities Coalition, and the coalition will focus on health and wellness in the community. So our goal is to kind of do an assessment and look at wants and needs of the community, and then start kind of involving people based on what we learned from that assessment, and just kind of start connecting people, bringing resources in, and helping address some of the needs of the community. So I ran a coalition in Heber City for about 15 years, but as Wasatch County grows, we are reaching out to our outlying areas to start doing coalitions there, and just to help our communities be healthy. And so we're working on a survey of launching it within the next couple months, so you'll probably be hearing some more about it. And if anybody is interested in being part of the coalition, we meet once a month for an hour at the Hideout Town Hall. And you can be connected through Jan, or Alicia has my email as well. And we follow a evidence-based community coalition model that we follow through some specific steps to help the coalition be successful and run in a good and healthy way and be helpful to the community. Any questions?
Well, you mentioned you have a meeting at the
Hey, thank you.
Hideout Town Hall.
Yes.
Do you have a meeting schedule already laid out, or when is your next meeting?
We do. So we meet the third Thursday of every month from 2 to 3. So our next meeting is this next Thursday, a week from today, from 2 to 3. We know the weather is a little sketchy. We meet in person as much as we can. We always have a Zoom option at those meetings, so anybody can join by Zoom. But I do like to meet with people before they join and give them a better explanation of the coalition, so they kind of have a good understanding of what we do.
How do people reach you, Trudy?
Alicia has my email, and that's probably the best way, but it's trudyb@wasatch.org.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions from anybody on the council?
Great, thanks for giving me some time.
Yeah, I was wondering, Trudy, do you have a website? Hello?
If we have a website.
Yeah, do you have a website with what
So
you
we
want
don't
to
have a-
accomplish and what you're trying to do with
Not
the
yet.
Jordanelle communities? And
Not
is the
yet.
only
We
meeting?
don't have a website developed.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of delay here. So, do you have? Is the only meeting that you have on the monthly basis actually at Hideout Town Hall on that third Thursday? Is that the monthly meeting period, or do you have meetings in other locations?
So that's the only place we do the Jordanelle Communities Coalition.
Okay, that's great. And so it sounds like we'll look for some information going forward as you develop maybe some of the materials that you want to publish.
Okay, great. Okay.
All right. Well,
Thank you for giving me some time.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we'll go on to agenda item number 2.
You're welcome.
And number 2 is the presentation of ranked choice voting by Colleen Potter, Executive Director of Utah Ranked Choice Voting. So Colleen, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with your council. I believe 2 years ago I visited with you, and I know you have some new faces, but I have a brief presentation. If you'd like me to share my screen, I can do that, and I can just sort of adapt to your questions or what you would like to know more about ranked choice voting. If you want kind of a brief overview of what it is, what the benefits are, the process in Utah, kind of the ball, kind of what's happening out in Utah, and then happy to answer questions if that works for you. So you can request. Oh, it says I can send a request to share my screen.
I think you should be able to share now.
Okay. let's see, share screen. Okay. So it is, this is the tricky part, right? Why is it doing that? It's supposed to be. Okay.
You may have to hover over the bottom and then see a green box with an arrow. If you kind of hover over the Zoom screen, sometimes it populates at that point.
Over the Zoom screen.
Just over all of the attendees. Oh, there you go.
There it is. Is that working?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So I think I need to make it do a slideshow. And here we go. Okay, so with that, I'm Colleen Potter, and I am the executive director of, oops, I'm going to skip that video, of Utah Ranked Choice Voting. I'm the former mayor of Heber City, and I was also the state election director many years ago, which is what brought me to working with Ranked Choice Voting. Currently in Utah, we have a pilot program that the legislature has authorized. This is the 4th year of that pilot program. And I'll give you a little overview. I need to probably turn this off because that's probably showing. I don't know how it works. Okay. Basically, on your ballot, instead of just having a choice, let's talk about the mayoral race. Let's say you would say, okay, who do I want for mayor? Instead of choosing one person, you would rank the candidates in order of preference. And then the county clerk would count the first choices of all the voters. And if someone has over 50%, then they are declared the winner. If not, the last place candidate of the total number who were on the ballot would be eliminated. And the votes that they chose for second choice are retallied. And then we go back again to see if someone has a majority. Sometimes this is called instant runoff voting because it's essentially trying to replicate what would happen if we were to have an election, count all the votes and say, wow, we really need someone to get 50%. So we'll drop the lowest one and have everyone come back and vote again. That's expensive and time consuming. And so this way we can see who people would choose if they didn't get their first choice. And it gives us an opportunity to do a few things. And I'm going to go to the next screen. Those who used in 2023, there were 12 cities and 3 counties that used ranked choice voting. We had in 2021, there were about 23 cities that voted to use it. And I'm happy to go into detail about why some of those chose not to use it again, if you would like. I want to tell you a little bit about the benefits of ranked choice voting. I will be the first one to tell you there's no perfect election system, but with ranked choice voting, there are some benefits that are superior to our current system. The first one is, as a small city, which a lot of small cities are finding this as a benefit to them, you can eliminate the primary election. I know in Heber, sometimes we would have an entire primary election to eliminate one mayoral candidate or one council candidate because we didn't have that many candidates. It allows you to predict your budgeting, so you don't have to say, well, we might have a primary and we might not. So that's one thing. You get to save some money on a primary. These city campaigns are shorter and less expensive. As a candidate, I know sometimes that matters for people wanting to run or not run if they don't have to do 2 full things through the primary and then the general. Your county clerk, Eve, has said she is happy to run the ranked choice voting election for you. She has the equipment and everything necessary if you choose to do it. One of the things that's often a frustration for voters is to say, am I voting for the person I want, or do I have to be strategic? I really like my neighbor Joe, but I'm not sure he's going to win, so I probably don't want to waste my vote. But in ranked choice voting, you can say, well, I'm going to vote for Joe, and if he loses, he's out, and then I still have a say in the next round among the remaining candidates. So it allows voters to more fully express their will and not have to strategize about whether they might be wasting a vote. A winner has to have a majority vote. Sometimes we have what's called the spoiler effect, where maybe 70% of your community has a strong opinion about certain issues, but multiple candidates are running based on those issues and they split the vote. And somehow someone with 30% of support who doesn't support those same issues comes in, and sometimes there can be a spoiler by winning, or pulling votes away and making it so that the most desirable and preferred candidate doesn't win. Whether a candidate needs a majority vote is sometimes a philosophical conversation. Currently now, if they have a plurality, they win. But as we find our decisions to be more difficult and the contention getting higher, it is important to say that more than 50% or 50% plus one of the people in this election wanted this person to make these decisions. So it helps with trying to create consensus in our cities. Now, post-election, we can audit ranked choice voting just like any other election. And also, what happens is you run the votes through and a county produces a cast vote record. Then they run it through what's called RC tab, which tabulates the ranked choice voting totals. It doesn't take any longer. It's just a few more minutes to run the tabulation. It's just up to the county clerk to say, okay, we're going to do one on election night, 2 days later, however the county clerk does it. And you can request how you would like her to do it. This is my favorite reason for ranked choice voting. In our country right now, I ran for city council first like 10 years ago and then mayor. And I've worked as a professor at UVU. I've taught high school government. I've been doing this stuff my whole career. And I've never seen the division and the contention that we have in our country right now. And I think ranked choice voting, it almost trains us to think differently. We get to say, gosh, I really like my friend for mayor, but if they don't win, I have to look at the other candidates and say, well, who else supports parks and trails? Who else supports, better public safety? And we have to start looking at it not like the enemy and the person we like and everyone else is the enemy. And I think the candidates have to act differently. As a candidate, if I'm out going door to door in a regular election and I see a sign for my opponent, I'm going to pass right on by and not talk to those people, most likely. But if I'm in a ranked choice voting election, I'm going to stop and say, hey, I know you're supporting Jill, but would you consider me as your second choice? I also agree with her on these issues. And I think in our country right now, sometimes our systems and our processes encourage this kind of division and contention, whereas with ranked choice voting, we have to operate a little bit differently and look at things a little bit differently. So that's why I like it the most. We did some surveys, Y2 Analytics, after the 2021 and 23 elections, and I'll just zip through these real quickly so you can kind of get a sense of, sometimes people will say it's too confusing, but most voters, 81%, said it's at least easy or somewhat easy to use. Incidentally, the Utah County Clerk went to an assisted living center and passed out ranked choice voting ballots without giving any instruction. And they found the error rate was the same as it is in any election. It's pretty intuitive for us to rank things in our lives. I think from the time we're young, we're telling our parents, I want macaroni and cheese. Well, if we don't have that, I'll have a hot dog. And we are used to ranking things. And with some education, people quickly get the hang of how to vote a ranked choice voting ballot. Over 90% said the instructions were clear or somewhat clear. 62% liked it. Now, it was interesting that every city that used it, even the year where we had over 20 cities, at least 51% liked it. Sandy was the one with 51%. Salt Lake City had 80%. But in Sandy, there were some candidates who ran just because they didn't like ranked choice voting, and they told voters not to rank their choices. In our current elections, I know when I ran for city council, people said, tell your supporters to only vote for you and not rank their choices because it can hurt you if if these other people end up getting more votes. With ranked choice voting, it doesn't hurt or help you for your supporters to rank everyone. You're going to get that vote whether, no matter what happens, your vote is counted and you're either in or you're out before their next votes are counted. So sometimes there was misinformation, but that's basically, we found that the majority of voters like it. And we also found that after using it, they tend to like it even better. 60% said they were more likely to vote for someone they wanted to, didn't feel like they were wasting their vote by that strategy like I was talking about earlier. How satisfied were you? It was pretty similar to the ranked choice voting and non-ranked choice voting participants. There was a question about whether people think they need to get a majority of votes through ranked choice voting, or if it matters to them, or if they just think they should get the most votes. People who didn't use ranked choice voting said they think 57% should just get the most votes. So you can see the numbers there were a little bit different between ranked choice voting users and non-ranked choice voting. And 85% of those polled believe that it is important for people to get a majority of votes. You can see the difference in the two questions. I think sometimes when these questions are asked and people don't really know what they meant by plurality or majority, so there's a little discrepancy, but these were the numbers. People who used ranked choice voting, 50% said we should use this for other kinds and more elections. So if you, as a city, desire to use ranked choice voting, you guys vote on it, then you notify your county clerk and the lieutenant governor's office by May 1st. And currently in this legislation, the pilot program sunsets after this election. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. How do I do that? Stop share. There is a bill currently in the legislature to extend the pilot for 10 years. And I'll just be straight with you. In the beginning of this pilot project, the Republican Party brought ranked choice voting to Utah and used it in their conventions, and it was super popular. And we'd go to cities and they'd look at the pros and cons. And then after the Alaska used ranked choice voting in a much different way than we use it. They use it for partisan elections. And Sarah Palin lost. Donald Trump didn't like it. And suddenly it became a political issue. So you may hear people talk about it. But recently, UVU, a couple of professors, a math professor and a stats professor, did an evaluation. I think I emailed that to you. And mathematically, they said it's superior. We get more votes expressed than we do with our traditional system. And they encourage the legislature to continue. But some legislators say we want to see all 4 years. We want a comprehensive study, bring it back, and then we can look at it after the pilot is completed. So I don't believe that we will see it extended in this election cycle, but they still have next legislature and the year after to renew it before the 2027 elections. So anyway, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I know I was talking kind of fast, but I know how long these meetings are. So I'm trying to save your time.
Mike, can I start first? What does the ballot look like? How is it different from a traditional ballot?
Oh, I had a picture of that, and I know I thought it was in my, no, I took it out to shorten it. So in a traditional ballot, you'd have the names of the candidates. The difference is just that you have, next to the candidate, you have some bubbles, and you have enough bubbles to say, you have enough bubbles to rank all the candidates. So you might go on there and say, the first candidate is my first choice, the second candidate's my third choice, and then you have like a little graph where you have to just go in and fill whichever bubble, how you want to rank those candidates. I'm not explaining it very well, but if that makes sense. I will email you guys a picture. I'm so sorry I didn't have that in there. I must have taken that out.
That's okay. I just wondered how confusing it is for anyone who receives the ballot. And as you mentioned, you went to an assisted living place, and with minimal instruction, everyone seemed to be fine with it. So that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
There are a lot of materials available for educating voters. In Heber, we had an insert that went into the ballot. The city recorder, actually, Alicia, I think was there to help us when we did this back when she was in Heber, would go to the farmer's market, and they had a place where people could do sample voting. Some cities, Vineyard once had a vote for your favorite pizza restaurant, and they had sort of a town hall night, or they had something online. So there are a lot of ways to provide opportunities for voters to understand it and actually vote what a ranked choice voting ballot would look like before the election. And we are happy to help provide you with all of the support to do that.
Great. And you also mentioned the results come back just as quickly as through the standard voting method. Is it because RC Tab, is that what you call the software that runs? Because it just calculates things very quickly? Or
yeah. So
go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted you. It's open source software, and Josh Daniels, he's on our team. He was the Utah County Clerk and ran ranked choice voting elections for 2 cycles. And he said it took another 5 or 10 minutes after they did the first count with running the ballots through, and you get this cast vote record, then they can automatically run it through the tabulator. So that can be done. They could run it every time they update the count. Some county clerks will say, well, here's the cast vote record. We're going to do this every 2 days or every week. I don't know what Eve had said, but they can do it just like they can do when they update the count for the original cast vote record.
So
I have
sorry, go ahead, Carol. One more question, then I'll just turn it over to you. So in the last election, how long did it take for results you said Heber City used it. How long did it take for their ranked choice voting results, the preliminaries, to come out?
Wasatch County was slower than other counties, and it was sort of a decision from the county clerk, not because of ranked choice voting, but a lot of counties, they are able to process ballots during the day. So when the polls close at 8 o'clock, they release the first round of votes. Wasatch County has not done that. And maybe Alicia has, I don't know if she remembers back when she was there, but for some reason theirs have been delayed, regardless of whether it's a city election or a county election. So that's probably not the best example, because she doesn't tend to process those ballots during the day or ahead of time, whereas a lot of them will come out with a big batch right when the polls close. But
I did notice that the ranked choice voting in Wasatch County was slower to come out with results last time.
Yeah, and it was slower with the school board election this last year. Like, that had nothing to do with ranked choice voting. They were just slower.
Okay.
I know processing it is harder when you have people registering election day, but for some reason they don't do the advanced processing that they could.
Okay, thank you. Carol, go ahead with your question.
Okay, my question is, I know the current legislature right now is looking at possibly stopping mail-in ballots. And, I like the fact that I have a ballot in my house and I can look at it and determine who I want to vote for. If you have to go to a voting booth, it's going to take a whole lot longer, I would think, to try to do ranked choice voting. Can you address that?
Yes, it's a great question. I know that me, and at least 80% of the people in the state, I believe, like mail-in voting. And it will be unfortunate if they change that. The latest conversations I've heard is that they wanted to mail out the ballots and have you return them by hand, but I think that's all still up in the air what they're going to land on. It all depends on how many candidates are running for those races, and it could take longer because you would be ranking a few people. Most people I don't think they're going to take away the ability for you to get a ballot in the mail. So you would have had a chance to do your homework and decide who you're supporting. My understanding is they would have you return it by hand. So it would all be completed and filled out at home, the same as always. Only instead of mailing it back in, they want you to bring it in person with ID. So that if they do it that way, it shouldn't affect it. If they made everyone go back to the polling place, it would, but I don't think that will happen because of the massive support we have for people getting mail-in ballots. I talked to a legislator, and he is a senator. He does not believe they're going to take that away, but I guess everything's up in the air right now. You never know till it's over.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Ralph, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Colleen, hi, just one question, Ralph Severini. It still seems like a low take up, and this was my concern, I think, when you came in last year. If I look at 12 cities, and we have 254 towns, that's still around 5% take up, and you said some dropped out. So, any thoughts to why it's been such a low take up over 4 years? That's pretty low, in my opinion. And then, are the counties using them? We have 29 counties in Utah. So are elections at the county level or other level getting any benefits out of this? Because anyway, if you'd address the low take up, that's my biggest concern.
Yeah. When the legislature approved this pilot program, they had considered using it for partisan primaries to solve the plurality problem. Like when Governor Cox was elected, he had 38%. So there was a lot of talk around how do we solve this problem with, Congressman Moore had 30%. And at the last minute, they said, let's just do a pilot and only allow cities to use it. So no counties can use it for their elections. Only cities are allowed to use it. And the idea was to see how it went. The first year, nobody wanted to be a guinea pig. In our true conservative style, it was hard to get the cities to be the first ones. So that's where, and none of the county clerks were willing to run those elections for them. So that's when Josh Daniels and Amelia, who's now a county commissioner in Utah County, said they would do it, and they had 2 cities jump on. The next year, it went up to the 23. And in between that is when all the political stuff happened. But one of the things that's been a challenge is county clerks who don't want to do it. And typically they don't give any specific arguments about why they don't like it, but county clerks have been beat up over the last couple of years, and they don't want any more potential for error or criticism or threats, which is what happened in a big way after the 2020 election. So some county clerks just say, I'm not, like I called the Cache County clerk the other day and he said, we have a lot of new staff. We just haven't done it before. So I just don't want to do it. And there are 3 cities up there right now that want to do it. They used it in 2021. They want to do it again, but it was because of some personnel issues in the county clerk's office that the county clerk wouldn't allow it. It's something that I've wanted cities to say, yeah, we're going to do it, and then see what the county clerk actually does, because the law allows them to do it. But most of the time the cities say, oh, we can't do it. Our county clerk won't let us. And every county except for Summit, because you have a new clerk since ranked choice voting was an option, has used it. So right now we have Utah County using it, Salt Lake County, Wasatch County, Oakley is considering it, Park City's considering it. So Summit County, oh wait, you guys are in our county, Wasatch County. Sorry, I kept confusing that and saying you were in Summit. But anyway, so a lot of the issue has been with county clerks. Some of the issue is political. Some of the issue is someone lost that didn't think they should have lost, and they put a lot of pressure on the council and blamed it on ranked choice voting. I had that on the internet the other day. Someone said, now you got so-and-so because of ranked choice voting. And I said, they had the most votes. They would have won under any election system. So change is hard, and sometimes people don't like it.
Yeah, that's a lot of good explanations, but yeah, it still sounds like a pretty low take up and a challenge, Colleen, for moving this forward. So okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember last time, Ralph, we chose not to do it because we did not expect very many people would be running for our open seats. I think as we grow in Hideout, we should be hoping that more people who live here are now eligible and willing to run for office. We're going to have in 2025, this June, there'll be 2 council seats and the mayor up for election. So it's possible we could get a large number of interested parties. And if we have more than 4 people running for council and more than 2 running for mayor, we will have to run a primary. And that would be, I think, the first time we ever had to do that in Hideout, a primary.
Yeah, town's growing. We don't know exactly what the trajectory of that will cause or whether people will jump in, so to speak. So
right, and the
all
idea,
good. Yeah.
And the idea of starting a campaign in June or July for this tiny municipality that we live in seems really long. I know you all love to campaign. I know I love to campaign. So that's something to consider.
That was one of my things, as I always had a primary, and I felt like nobody cared in the summer. And I'm out there campaigning, and then I'd come back in September. They'd say, I thought you already won this. And I'd say, oh, that was the primary. And municipal elections are notoriously low turnout. we already have voter fatigue from the even years. So then you come and spend 6 months. I think most people can figure it out in 3 months. So that is one reason why I really like it.
All right, Ralph, any other information you'd want? Because the reason that we have Colleen here is because in advance, we have to make this decision in the April council meeting, right? Right, Alicia? We would have to make that decision
Yes, we have to let them know before May 1st.
before May 1st. So this gives us a little runway to, contemplate it for a couple of months before we have to come up with a decision. Okay, Jonathan, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I thought it was very informative, gave me a lot to think about. It's, there's a lot on each side of the equation, so I think I need to think about it, so I'm glad we got this out now, because it affords me time to weigh the options.
Yep, well, I'll give you my opinion. I like the idea of ranked choice voting for Hideout for the next election, for the reasons that I said, that we have more people in town. We should have the biggest pool of candidates we've ever had, I would think. And, we would want those who really get the most votes and have the most support to win the open seats, I think. And also to shorten the whole election cycle, and also make it less costly for us. So to me, there are lots of positives there. All right, that's my opinion. Okay, any further questions? All right, Colleen, thank you so much for coming back. I think we'll be seeing you again, possibly, when we're ready to make our decision in April. Hopefully you'll come back and talk to us again.
Yeah, you bet. And if you guys have any questions or any issues that you have concerns, let me know. There's tons of research out there. I'm happy to share with you anything that you need. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Colleen.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 3. This is discussion of private versus public roads in Elkhorn Springs. And it looks like I need to display my screen. So give me a second.
And Chris, can I just jump in, or Mayor Pro
Yes.
Tem? Sorry. So I didn't see this agenda item till it was already in the packet. And I don't think it's appropriate where, we don't just give input on one, we have an application for Elkhorn Springs that's going through the process. So it is germane to talk about this issue just on a more global level of where is the town in terms of public versus private streets. What are our expectations for new developments, and how do we expect that to be, how we expect them to be developed. The staff report's pretty high level, so I don't know, maybe Gordon and or Thomas can kind of go through what some of the pros and cons are. But I think at this point it was just teed up for just a little bit of discussion, but the discussion should not be specific to a particular pending application. It should be just generally kind of what is the town thinking? And that's the kind of thing that could be rolled into our general plan, for example, or just as we get developments, kind of what our expectations are regarding public versus private streets.
All right, thank you so much for putting guardrails in there for us, Polly. Thomas, I don't know, do you want to lead us off with the discussion? What's the difference between public and private roads? Where do we stand in the town with what's our mix of those? And what are the implications on our newly adopted, engineering standards? Okay, Thomas, would you
Sure.
share? And then maybe Gordon, you can add.
Sure, I think that Gordon can jump in, and certainly Dan can jump in as well. So the thought tonight was to have a bit of a high level discussion, and again, we won't look at a specific project per Polly's recommendation, but the idea is to look at the town's policy direction relative to future projects, whether it's, in Elkhorn Springs, it's an annexation area, a new development project, a new subdivision, et cetera. How do we want to start thinking about roads and specifically road construction? And then do we take over the maintenance and the repair of the roads, or is that part of the HOA? And so with regard to the new engineering standards, the new design standards, if a road is going to be public, it would have to certainly be built to those standards. As we look at new subdivisions, the question is going to be, do we want to take over maintenance? Recent history is that we have generally thought that we think the HOA should take over that maintenance just because it's a significant expense. And Dan Allen could probably speak to that a little bit, and Gordon might be able to as well. So really, I guess at this point, this is a high level discussion. I think based on some information that Jan sent out prior to our last planning commission meeting, I think the town's budget is about a little over 400,000 for road maintenance, and we have about 10 miles of roads in the community. So you're looking at about $40,000 per mile in terms of maintenance, repair, snow plowing, etc. We also get about $16,000 per mile from the state for the maintenance and repair of public roads. And so I think if I'm doing my math correctly, Dan, Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong, that's about $56,000 a year per mile for road maintenance, road construction, snow plowing. So the question is, are we prepared to take over roads as a development comes in? Do we want them to build them to public standards, to the new engineering standards, and then dedicate them to the town for our maintenance? Or is that something that we are not prepared to do at this point? Dan, certainly, Gordon, jump
I
in.
can't speak to if they have to be built to the standards that we have, whether we maintain them or not. That'd be a Gordon question. But just an example, every year with just for snowplow, because we're in the middle of it, right? Every year is so different. This year we haven't had big storms, but we've had about 18 to 19 plowable or saltable storms. And what I mean by that is, just because it doesn't look like a lot of snow that we've had because it's melted or gone away, we are still having to come in and push that and salt it. And I've actually, the year that 2021 we had that really, really big year, I'm pushing close to the same amount of salt usage this year as I did that year. And that's just based on, there's been a few, about 6 or 7 of these storms that have come through and they put less than a half inch down, but it's 12 degrees. So I've had to come in and push and use quite a bit of salt to make sure, because we don't live on a flat surface. We live, everywhere we go in town is a hill or a sharp curve. For instance, over by Chris's house below or right there, that hill gets super slick if we don't salt it and do a good job with it. So I've used quite a bit more salt this year, and last year I didn't. And we had a decent amount of storms, but they're just different, and each year is so much different. And the maintenance, I think the town would, in my opinion, and my job depends on public works stuff. That's what I get paid to do. But I think as a town and where we sit, we'd be better off to let some of these new developments just take over their roads and maintain them, because it is a huge, huge expense. I mean, we're a couple years out from having to resurface sections of town, the whole town, not just crack seal and that. We're going to have to resurface things. Right now we're getting by with a few things here and there, and with some crack seal and maybe some chip seal here and there, and we're extending it out, but eventually it's going to catch up to us. If that makes sense.
I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, Gordon, you're up.
So I would begin with the general statement that roads are an expense. You know, it's just like buying a car. Unless you're buying some sort of classic car that you're never going to drive, maybe that kind of car would appreciate in value. But every other car you buy, from the moment you buy it, it begins to depreciate, and it's expensive, and increasingly expensive over time. Roads are the same. The amount of money we get from BNC road funds doesn't begin to compensate for the expense for roads. The vast majority of cities don't have, maybe all of them. I'm not familiar with one that does, a city that has a road utility fee. So for the other utilities, water, sewer, theoretically, the rates that are paid, a portion of that rate is being saved for rejuvenation of the system, and theoretically, you know, you're charging rates to keep the system revenue neutral and perpetual, sustainable. Not the case with roads. So eventually, roads will affect property taxes. A lot of times, cities will get bonding to do road work, so they're expensive. With regard to public and private, the current engineering standards require that a road, whether it's public or private, have the same pavement design. So the same. So if it's a private road, it would have the same pavement thickness. It would have the same road base thickness. It would have the same sub base thickness. It would have the same subgrade preparation as a public road. The difference would be in the side treatments and you know, a little bit of width. The width right now, the standard calls for 33 feet curb face to curb face, and that might come down by a foot or so. And maybe if they use different curbs, it might come down by 3 feet or so. Because if they go to private, then widths are the widths default to whatever's required in the fire code. And then side treatments, when I say side treatments, that's the curb, that's the sidewalk, the park strip, and in Hideout, as you all know, many of the developments don't have any side treatments. The standard that you just passed last month calls for side treatments, calls for high back curb, a park strip, and a 5-foot park strip and a 5-foot sidewalk. So, yeah, so that's the surface improvements. That's the discussion about the surface improvements. An added complication is all of the utilities that are buried underneath. Storm drain, sewer, storm drain, sanitary sewer, and drinking water system. My recommendation would be if somebody wanted to have a private street and the council chose to allow them to do that, that they just bought the utilities as well. That the drinking water system, the storm drain system, the sanitary sewer system, those become owned and operated and maintained by an HOA also. That means master metering and so forth. The reason I say that is because you get into some potential conflicts if the city owns and maintains the utilities, but an HOA owns and maintains the surface improvements. Then there's this great potential for conflict for when the city has to go dig in the street and fix a pipeline or something. Then there's this question about who pays to repair the street, and there's just this interface between the two parties who are literally in the street together. There was one more item on the tip of my tongue, and it slipped my mind now.
And while Gordon's thinking about that, one other thing I thought is might be helpful for you to know is that so in the town, under the master MDA area, those are all public roads that the town maintains, except for Reflection Lane and Reflection Ridge, which are private. Deer Springs is dedicated to the town, but they pay for plowing and I believe maintenance. And I was just looking at the annexation master development agreement, and that has kind of a hybrid, which is that the developer constructs the public streets to the standards, to the town standards, dedicates it to the town. But then the master developer and then subsequently the HOA bears all costs and expenses associated with maintaining the streets. And so basically the town does the maintenance and then bills the developer or HOA when the HOA takes over.
Okay, so this came back to my mind, and you reminded me of Polly with your comments. HOAs are infamous for not being well managed, and it happens often that once a road is 20 years old or so and requires substantial reclamation, that over the course of that 20 years, the HOA has not been saving up money to do any of that. And roads are something that you must constantly put money into and keep them on the top end of their condition. If you once let them deteriorate to a certain condition, then they are just a loss. You know, if you have a road that's got alligator cracking, you've lost that road. There's nothing you can do to reclaim it short of digging it up and replacing it. And so HOAs are not very good at saving that money and maintaining constantly over time to prevent the catastrophic repairs at the end. And so when they find themselves in that situation, that's when they approach the municipality and say, hey, we can't do this. Will you take over our infrastructure? And that puts city councils in a bind as well.
All right, Gordon, thank you. Thank you for all that information. Okay, anyone else have anything to present before the council starts peppering you with questions? Okay. With that, I guess I'll open it up to the council. Any questions, comments, observations that you would like to discuss?
You know, as a general proposition, I don't have a problem with an HOA owning the road, but I think it is going to have to be built to the town's engineering standards and as the fire department may require, because I view this as a public safety issue. If the fire department can't get up there with an ambulance or an appropriate truck, you know, That's a real problem, and I don't think we should be sanctioning or endorsing that. And then I think if they're gonna make it a private road, whether, by gating or otherwise, I think they're gonna have to provide the town with unfettered access, whether it's a key code, a key card, or something of that nature, to both the town and the fire department. And I take Gordon's point that, there's gonna have to be an ordinance or some kind of agreement that they're gonna have to maintain the road. And then if we have to go up there to fix something, they're gonna have to repair the road. Cause I can see how we could get into a bit of a disagreement over that. And I guess that brings me to my final point, is what is our enforcement ability? If we see a road that is falling out of our standards, do we have the ability to force that HOA to bring it up to standard after the fact, 5, 10 years down the road?
Yeah, that's a great point, Jonathan. Thank you. Ralph,
Um,
anything? Oh, go ahead, Gordon, if you want to reply.
Well, I don't. So talking about the standard, I'm talking about the standard of construction, design and construction. Once it's built, obviously I'm not an attorney, but once it's built, I don't see how the town would have leverage to say, hey, you're not maintaining your road as you should.
Are there actual standards on the maintenance of roads that we could adopt or apply?
Well, there are standards of care, I guess. There are best practices, but that would that would be quite an oversight activity to audit them and monitor them to see that they are doing that. I've never heard of a city doing that.
And I would say, I mean, for the annexation area, we are, it has the way it's drafted is that the town would do the maintenance and then charge the HOAs, excuse me.
Right. That's the agreement that's what, 4 years or more old, prior to all the legal wrangling and the referendum that came through. So that's what it says now. That's what we thought then. I'm just curious to see what anyone else is on the council, what your opinions are about public versus private roads. Because at the end, I'm going to render my opinion, but I want to give everyone a chance to say their own. So, Carol, do you have any opinions of public versus private? Anything you'd like to ask a question about? Putting you on the spot, and you're off mute now. Go ahead.
Right. I'm thinking of the Colony, which is, I think, just outside of Park City. And I know that that is privately maintained. The homes there are very expensive. They're very exclusive. The people who live there knew when they bought into the Colony that they were going to have to pay for their own road maintenance and plowing, et cetera. And, right now in where most of us live in Hideout, the roads are maintained by the city, but I'm thinking some of the newer areas that are coming in are going to be more exclusive. They're going to be higher up in the mountains. And I guess my feeling is that that's part of, if you're going to live in a more exclusive area, maybe you should have to pay for your roads, because it's going to be a tremendous expense to Hideout to maintain those roads. I mean, this is just off the top of my head. I haven't really thought it through, but that's kind of where I'm coming from right now.
And it makes a lot of sense. Thanks for bringing up the Colony. All right, so for me, I feel
So
like,
hold on, Chris, you wanted to go last, I think. So.
okay. Oh, Ralph, so go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah,
Sorry,
let me
yes.
jump in. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, yeah, Gordon, you mentioned the differential in width on the road based upon potential private developer having narrower width by 1 foot. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I said so. I said one because I was thinking the curb width we have in the standard right now. I mean, curb face to curb face, so that counts the pans, is 33 feet. The fire code requires at least 32 feet if you're going to park on both sides. The thing we didn't discuss, or the thing that I didn't mention, is what we will see is if private streets are allowed, then the developer, in order to save money, is going to continue to promote the idea of uh, the the bare minimum width allowed by the fire code, which was be about 26 feet, which would allow parking only on one side. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like it gives a lot more latitude if it's a privately maintained road to reduce the width. Is that the implication here that I'm hearing?
Well, yeah, latitude, and it saves the developer money. So
Yeah,
the
of course.
developer,
Yeah.
the developers like private roads because their upfront cost is minimal, and they leave the project, and then an HOA and people have to live there, and the developer's not, dealing with the issues that they left.
Whether it's wide enough and it meets current standards, et cetera. So, yeah, so that was one point. Sounds like we would then give the developer rights to make their own decision as to what that might be or meet their minimum standards. The other issue I need to think about here is a little bit about on the taxation. So, if a HOA has private roads maintained by their funds, they're still paying the same tax rate to the town for the services from the town. Am I correct on that? Just want to get a benchmark of who's paying for what, so to speak, because so Gordon, or can someone else just
Yeah, I
make
don't
sure
know
I'm-
about I don't know about the taxation issues.
Everyone pays the same taxes.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Paula. That's what I thought. So you could have different HOAs maintaining the roads, as Gordon gave that excellent example of, and yet, paying, basically either paying more or less depending on where they're living and how much their HOA is funding the road maintenance, but they're still paying the same tax. So some people might see that as being, oh, it's like I'm paying tax for your maintenance, so to speak, if I'm maintaining my own.
Well,
Don't know.
if the HOA is saving money and to maintain those roads, then those property owners are
Happy.
well, no, they're paying more because the HOA they have the authority to levy taxes as well. So if they're saving money, then they're collecting taxes from the HOA members to maintain those roads. While to Polly's point, they're paying taxes to the city to maintain roads too that we're not maintaining.
But just
I
to
get your
make a
point.
distinction, not tax, they don't pay
Yeah.
taxes to the HOA, they're just paying assessments.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So I
Yep.
get that. I think we were just mixing the view of how that was presented, but okay. And then do we have any examples of good and bad here? Like what's the good view, what's the bad view of this? Either I think we have some examples internally, but any other examples would be useful to get some better data points around this. I mean, in general, I would love to see the HOAs and the developers pick this up, but not when standards decrease, safety decreases, And to be honest with you, I look at people I talk to in the HOAs, and they often say, everything's, they'll talk about problems within the HOAs, and yet they're talking, they'll say, oh, why isn't the town doing that? And I'll say, well, that's an HOA problem. And so there's oftentimes confusion for the homeowners within the HOAs as to who's doing what. So there is that. There's always that kind of problem issue that is just part and parcel of who owns what, who's maintaining what, how is it maintained, who's paying for what, and there's a lot of lack of clarity. So sometimes that leads me to having a common standard, and the common standard is the town managing this. And I think that was a little bit where you were going on some of your arguments, so to speak, Gordon. But at the same time, it's expensive, and so how can we mitigate the expense? Anyway, I'd like to see more data, if we can get some, as to what works well, what are some of the best practices that we can ascribe to our developers as they come into this, if we do segment developer, HOA owned and maintained roads. Can you help us out?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph. Go ahead and finish.
No, go ahead. I think I'm finished. Jump in,
All right,
Jonathan.
thanks, Ralph.
One
Jonathan,
question of clarification to Polly, if I may.
Yes.
Polly, did I understand your comment earlier that so long as essentially if we maintain the same road repair standards throughout the town, in other words, we're not targeting a certain area, but we have one consistent kind of standard for maintaining the roads, that are we on solid ground then of billing the HOA for that one equal kind of standard?
Yeah, what I'm reflecting is the annexation agreement that we have that says that we will maintain it and then build them. And of course, we would be maintaining it at the level of what our standard is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. All right, so this has been a long discussion, but I just want to add a couple of things. I have lived in this situation, as Gordon was describing, with an HOA who, has to deal with the roads, hasn't saved enough money. I actually have lived through that with a very small private road here in the basin. And I'm not going to mention exactly where it was, but it is difficult. HOAs don't know how to do this well. Towns do know how to do this well. Cities and towns, what's the reason that we exist? We exist for shared infrastructure, sense of community, and local control. And I liked where Ralph was going as far as, having a patchwork of all these different arrangements with HOAs or not HOAs, and it's very confusing. The standards are all over the place. The ability for the roads to not get to that crucial, point of no return where they're just going to have to be dug up and redone, that is much more likely to happen with us moving toward private roads and HOA managed. So anyway, like I said, I've lived through that. It's very difficult for an HOA to handle something like that. And as Gordon was talking about, well, then you have this conflict about the surface conditions versus what's underneath and who's going to pay for what. I think things like that are already happening on the reflection, the reflection ridge. I think that's what it's called, area behind the gate. I think that's already happening. These arguments between, the HOA and the people that are trying to build over there. So I don't know why we would want any more private roads in Hideout, unless we had a situation, as Carol was describing, where we had some really super exclusive area and they wanted a gate, and they just want things the way they want things, and they were willing to take it on. I think as a general rule of thumb, I think the reason we exist is for shared infrastructure, and we should find a way, since cities and towns are expected to be able to figure out how to maintain the roads and raise enough, get enough B&C road money, and then figure out, what other revenue sources do we have to be able to effectively maintain roads. I think that's one of our core responsibilities as a city. I personally don't want to see any more private roads. And I do not want to see any developers doing the bare minimum and then passing along, easily saying, oh, we'll just have the HOA maintain it. When in reality, eventually, they step away and the people that have bought into there are left with this challenge that I think is very difficult for HOAs to handle. So that's my opinion.
So if I could add to that, and that's exactly where I was headed. I mean, that's my opinion, Chris. And to answer your question, Ralph, about data, data can be collected, but anecdotally, the only benefit I see, and Chris alluded to this, the only benefit that I see of a private development is this benefit of exclusivity. And if they are so focused on exclusivity, then cities I've been in have said, well, okay, if that's your focus, then that's fine. But it's your baby. It's all of it's yours. The utilities, everything. And so we're going to master meter you, and what's on your side of the meter and what's on your side of the manhole and what's on your side of the fence is all yours. That exclusivity is the only benefit I see of private developments.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that's where I was going with maybe some best practices around that, Gordon. But yeah, one of my concerns would be, how do you mandate financial exclusivity 2 decades from now? So
well, you don't mandate it. They just it's just like a private homeowner. If they just choose not to maintain their house, if they choose not to re-roof it at a certain period, and they end up having leaks and ceilings that are falling and so forth, the government can't help that situation either. I see it as the same.
Yeah. Well, and one thing you can do, and it's possible, is, could an exclusive community or section of town say, we're just going to maintain our own roads. But you guys own them, so to speak, and we'll keep them up to a higher standard while we have the financials, so to speak, and to me, that would be fine. So if they kept it up to a higher standard minimum than the town, and they wanted to maintain that level of exclusivity. Have you seen any of that, Gordon?
No, with the city owning it, I've never seen an HOA maintain their infrastructure
without owning it.
Yeah, and even when they own it, I haven't seen them maintain it in a superb way. Okay, I mean, we struggle with that. Mm-hmm. Municipalities struggle with that.
Yeah. Is Park City doing anything? Do you know? In that has, have they set up any private road structures for some of their more exclusive areas, like?
Well, not even they have. I mean, based on my experience with Park City, they have certain pockets that are private. So,
like Glen Wild or something like that? Or,
no, Glen Wild is in the county, but in Park
okay.
City Municipal, I'm trying to remember the name. There's an area kind of by the Park City, by the golf course, Park Meadows Golf. I guess it's in Park Meadows. That's not particularly exclusive, but that's what the developer did. So
Mhm.
I think it's yeah, it's the tension between kind of taxes and you know, there's an argument for fairness versus cost to the city to maintain the roads.
I'd like to make a comment. And I don't know if it's really relevant, but the roads that are being maintained in Hideout right now don't meet the standards that we now have for roads. They're a lot narrower. They have rolled curbs. And so we're used to maintaining those roads that are much smaller. But now the roads that are going to go in are going to be almost twice as wide. They've got the higher curbs, the high back curbs. And I think that's going to require more maintenance just because it's a bigger area. And I don't know if that's anything to think about, but it may tax, you know, our people that are doing the plows, doing the maintenance, because they've got more maintenance to do. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
Well, the width that we went to is not double, it's a few feet. And we had a discussion about that in the council meeting about the standards. And it would, you know, there are compensating factors in my view, and I hope the reason the council voted for it at the time, they agreed with that, is that whatever small incremental cost that would be incurred in maintaining a few more feet was offset by a greater benefit of greater utility of the road in terms of width and parking and other reasons why we have roads.
All right. With that, I think everyone's had a chance to speak. Any final words that anyone wants to add?
I just think we should allow the developers the choice, but the choice carries with it, you know, the obligation to pay us for doing the maintenance. And if that's the deal they want, that's great. You know, if they want the exclusivity, they want that type of community that drives up property values and drives up our property taxes, I don't have a problem with that.
All right, well, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our next item, which is a presentation of the Fleet Paths snow plowing software, which couldn't be more timely. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Alicia.
Thank you. Daniel, I don't want to steal your thunder, so maybe he and I can kind of tag team this, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me get this pulled up here real quick. Sorry, it's a little difficult. I've got several screens open here. Okay, are you all seeing this Fleet Paths? This
Yes.
Colorful display. So what this is our new portal, online portal for the public to kind of see what roads we're responsible for maintaining, which ones we're not, and kind of where our snowplows have been, Public Works people have been for plowing them. So this first screen I'm showing you is our priority streets. And you can just kind of look, the primary and secondary. So obviously the primary is going to be the orange. It cuts off at the town. I just noticed that today. I'm going to have them take that off because obviously we don't do up to there. But anyway, so you know, these are our priority roads, and then the secondary roads are our second. You know, we'll get to those after we get to the main roads. So the status, this is semi-real time. And there's a key over here if you scroll down just a little bit. So this is going to show you that these main roads, or the blue roads, they've all been paved, or sorry, not paved, plowed less than an hour ago. And then the orange ones or sorry, if there was any orange on here, it would be 1 to 2 hours ago. And then the green is 2 to 4 hours ago. So you can kind of see where they've been, what they've been doing and everything. This is mainly for residents who are like, oh, they haven't been in my neighborhood, or, where are they, or are they going to get to me, or whatever. You can log on to here and just see where they're at and see kind of what's been going on. So it's pretty exciting. We'll have links to it on our website and on the app. And that's about it. I'm super excited to introduce this to our residents. So
Alicia, thank you. Is Daniel still here, or are you out plowing, Dan?
I'm here. I'm just getting ready, waiting to see if my guys need help. I've got them
Okay.
spaced out in 8-hour increments at 2 to 3 trucks out at a time for this big storm. So hopefully the roads are looking good, but this is a weird storm. I thought it was going to dump snow, and it's kind of just piddling around. It has a little bit, then it doesn't. And so that's why you see some of the areas aren't hit quite as soon, but that's kind of where we're at. I'm the backup guy tonight for filling in probably around 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm about to head to bed.
All right. Hey, Daniel, so we don't want to keep you too much longer. Now, is this software meant to just be informational for the community? Or is that its primary purpose, or are you using it in any way to help with your planning?
It's mainly informational. It's going to help us on the Deer Springs. I always get all of the subdivisions mixed up. Deer Springs down by my shop where we're billing the HOA. It'll help us with knowing how many times we've been on that. But I've been doing that anyway on paper. So it's kind of double duty in it for us. But it does help us to be able to say, okay, we've really, really concentrated on the mains and the main areas. It took us 4 more hours to get to that area. Why? So it'll kind of help us with that. It'll help me be able to communicate with my guys. We shouldn't be 4 hours out on the lower ends. We need to get down there within a couple hours, unless it's really, really bad storm. So it will help that way. And I am going to use it for training and whatnot, but it's more of an informational so that residents know that we haven't forgot them.
So can you just summarize for us kind of what the principles you follow as far as making decisions about when the plows will go out, and clearly, you have a preferred routes, I guess the primary roads first, secondary second, but can you just give us a quick summary of, how you deploy your crews and what helps you make your decisions about, when to send someone out to plow?
It really comes down to each storm for me. Some storms, I have one guy that'll go out, and I usually wait until about 4 in the morning. Because I watch the cameras pretty closely. We have multiple cameras around town. And so I'll watch and see if it's a small storm when we get like a half inch. Most of the people don't drive around town much after 10 or 11 o'clock. It's pretty dead. So we wait until around 3 or 4 in the morning for those small storms to go out to plow, to make sure that the roads are ready, cleared the best they can be for people to go to work or whatever else in the morning. So I try to keep it to around 3 or 4 in the morning, depending on the storm. These kind of storms where it's multiple days, I will have guys out pretty much 24/7. I have guys out right now. They'll go home at 2 or 3 in the morning. And then we'll have another group of guys come in at 3 or 4 in the morning. And then they'll go home about 8. And then I'll have guys in from 8 to whatever time. And it just keeps shifting. And we have guys continually coming and going. So that's kind of how I manage storms. I try to, if it's just a storm that's going to come and leave, I wait until it's going to leave, usually, not just go out to plow to plow. but the standard we've set and you guys passed a few years ago was 2 inches on the road. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes that's not, just based on it's really cold and it's slick and we need to get out there before that. So each storm is its own little beast.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
Hey,
Any questions?
Dan,
Yeah, go ahead.
before you jump off here, just looking at the spatial view here and I see blue over 248. Are you plowing 248 as well?
No, that the plow shouldn't be down. It probably wasn't. It may have been down just a little bit, so it showed that it was. This shows plow up, plow down, but sometimes they're heading over towards Soaring Hawk and whatnot. So the truck will show that it drove on 248, but they're not plowing it.
Okay, just
Our
curious.
trucks can't manage that kind of snow.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to double check why we're
Oh,
showing
heck no, that's
why
you,
we're
Doc.
showing 248.
Yeah, they're going to
And
drive on it to get over there. And so it's going to
Yeah.
show the truck on 248 and
Can
show that they're in that area.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I think, if somebody used this in town, they certainly might be interested in their particular access road, but they also might have to go to a UDOT kind of overview to understand what's being really plowed on 248, because that's really our entrance and exit from town. So just curious if we put this up, Alicia, just a suggestion, not sure what anybody else feels, but maybe we also have the link to where you would get the 248 information as well.
That's a really good point, Ralph. Thank you.
UDOT has an app for that, Ralph. I look at it often.
Yeah, exactly. So having both of those, might be useful, because I might not want to, if my local Longview was plowed, but I couldn't really get out, I didn't feel comfortable on 248, then I might not, I might say, I think I'll not jump on this journey next. So anyway, food for thought as to how we provide better information for everyone in town. So this is great.
Yeah, this is great. Daniel, we don't want to keep you too much longer. We know you have to go to sleep so you can get up early. I just want to say how much we appreciate this. And Alicia, how do people find this? Is this there's the address that you're showing, but is this on the website, a link to it on the hideoututah.gov website?
Yeah. I haven't quite got it up yet on the website, but Carol sent out the newsletter tonight, and we did throw it on there at the last second. So the link is on the newsletter, and I'll get the website up tomorrow. So
great.
Yeah, and then I'll also on the app as well. So
thank you.
One apparent bug, if I'm reading the map right, it appears that the emergency egress was plowed. It's green in the past 2 to 4 hours. I don't recall anybody ever plowing that. So I guess I think I'm going to make a bug report.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Hey, Daniel, and I just want to say, I think plow drivers are heroes, whether they work for the town of Hideout, whether they work for UDOT, whether they work for the Wasatch County. There are little local heroes trying to make the road safe for us so we can get around. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And I will say that I know that I left at 5 or 6 o'clock. And I know that I plowed in front of the fire station at that point. So it's been plowed, and I don't know why it's not showing. And it hasn't been 4 hours. So I'm just guessing that it's maybe malfunctioning. I'm just tooting my own horn because I did it. I know.
It's new. We'll work out bugs.
Well, and to your credit, I did notice a plow go down my street about an hour ago, and it hasn't updated. So they were out there working, even though the map doesn't show it.
All right.
Well, I was in at noon, and I went past your house at least 3 or 4 times, John. So I don't think it's showing exactly. But again, it's new. It's bugs. We'll fix it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to our next item, number 5. It's a presentation of the survey results from the community regarding the Ross Creek Open House. Now, Ralph, I think this is your agenda item. Is that right?
Well, it's my responsibility here, so yeah, I guess so. That depends on how you put it.
So I'll turn it over to you. Are you going to be presenting anything or just speaking to the results?
Well, I think what would be useful as part of the recording would be what's in the document, what's in our agenda items is pretty good. So
You want me to
I don't
share
know.
my screen while you speak to it then,
Yeah,
Ralph?
yeah, I would say just let's roll through at least the the graphs here, because that makes something visual and a little bit more pertinent. So just like why don't you pull up question 1, which is please select. So just to bring everybody back up to speed, this is the results that we got from both the folks that came to the Ross Creek session. Now the date eludes me, but yeah, so we had a discussion. I think we all know what we're talking about here. As to the specific questions that came up during the actual survey and the presentations and the discussions during the in-person, we just tried to replicate that online. There were 5 questions, and during our Ross Creek presentations, we had some storyboards and some pictures, and people would actually put little pasted red stickers next to their choices. And then obviously we did this online and combined the survey results. So first question really regarded, what are 2 goals you feel are most important? So it gave people 2 choices out of 4. And if you look at the results here, the mixed use opportunities, so cafes, outdoor dining, small retail combined with recreational, came in at 48.04%. So pretty close to 50%. And then connecting to the park and to the Jordanelle came in second. So I think that was fairly overwhelming. But if we combine that with question 2, so let's move down a bit. In question 2, select 2 images you feel best represent the type of development you would like to see on this site. So if you kind of combine these 2 questions together in your mind, again, of the top 4, mixed use development with outdoor dining, that came in at 65%. So I mean, it's 2/3. And then if you look at question 1, you kind of join those, and you have a pretty high percentage, somewhere between 50 and 2/3, that really are see this as most important. Boutique hotels and amenities came in kind of a distant second, and what really came in almost non-existent. I think people, both survey results on the in-person and online, which were both pretty consistent, showed no more residential development, so to speak. So, and then these last 3 questions were one here was more on the architectural design, that came in at 55% mountain modern. So that was a big winner. Traditional came in at the lower end, with a mixture in between. And then the last 2 questions kind of had a similar thought process around the recreational amenities and services that we'd like to see in town. In the first question here, we had sailing, cross-country skiing, boat launch, and stand-up paddleboard. Cross-country skiing came in high. Boat launch and dock actually, I think, came in at number 2. No, sorry, number 2 was stand-up paddleboard. So those 2 combined came in at over 60%. And so Cross-country skiing came in big. And then if you look at question 5, actually, it was fairly well split between kayak and small sailboat rentals, cross-country skis, and snowshoe rentals, which combined with the previous question indicate, that's a popular item. And if we do cross-country, we might need we might need an amenity to have skis and snowshoe rentals associated with it. Same thing with, the paddleboard rentals, that there might be some need for that. So probably people who answered that question. I thought there were some really interesting comments within some of the data. If we have a couple more minutes, I'd probably share that. You can read it, but I thought going way back up to question 1, it would be great to have dining and rental, including sailboats. We need recreational amenities. There was a comment on why can't we have a marina, but we've had mixed opinions in and around that. But certainly things like high-end groceries. And then I really like some comments like, all of those goals are good, actually. There was hey, all things were good, even if you only had 2 choices. Grocery stores, development for the lake is desirable in question 2. These are just some interesting comments. I thought this was an interesting one. Commercial development with an upscale cafe and a nice quaint restaurant that have excellent dishes and offer outdoor dining. I think those kinds of things seem to be some of the key words that came out in the comment section. And then finally on the recreational, that we will need some retail services to support the recreational to have a good combination of how that works, so to speak, for the park. So that was pretty much it. I thought we had a great return. So if you look at the numbers as to the number of folks who actually submitted, we have about 42 who were in person, because you'd have to divide numbers. I think in person was it averaged between 18 to 24% attended in person in terms of the total survey input, and about 76 to 82% filled this out online. But they were fairly consistent, and I think it shows that at least 167 people inputted. And Alicia, I'm not sure if you did any further analysis on the number of inputs, but let's assume it was between 160 and 200. That's statistically significant. So if you think about these 5 questions and the questions we did in 2022, I think it was April, May, when we did our last full survey, and I looked at that survey again, that data again is fairly consistent, so that we know over 2.5 years, we've obviously gained more people, but the same kinds of needs are showing up, whether we surveyed 2.5 years ago or we surveyed today, even though we didn't do quite the same level of survey in the Ross Creek, because it was somewhat limited here. Anyway, any questions? That's my summation of what I think we learned from this.
Thanks, Ralph. Hey, what's the next step with this data that you've gathered?
I think we have to turn this into realistic amenities that associate with the needs that came up really high here, like mixed use. So now this really turned into, and what we initially thought anyway, our economic development should be in line with what, the folks really want as well, what our town really wants. So that's the burden on us to attract the right folks.
Do you think we can take these survey results that focus on Ross Creek Open House and actually apply them to our annexation area that people would be wanting you know, or do you feel we need to do a different type of survey to speak to anything outside of just the 10 acres in Ross Creek?
I think surveys, you know, I obviously started the first survey way back when. You know, I think all of us, you know, want to be included in what their kind of vote is on what they would like for our town, and certainly a central theme. You know, whether it's you know, a form of creating greater community, so to speak, would be part, I think, of the questions we didn't ask explicitly in this, but we did ask in our first survey, or first complete survey, in 22. So it would be good to go back to understand where annexations play. However, we don't have a full view of where the annexation is, where there's some modifications that, you know, I think Nate, Mr. Brockbank, and, you know, the Miller family may have for Richardson Flat. So, you know, I think having a better understanding of where their next vision is of that and capturing that in a bit of surveys might be more useful than trying to preconceive that notion, because this, you know, this is imminent development. I do think the Ross Creek kind of stands on its own, in my opinion. I don't know, everyone can chime in on that. I think it stands on its own because it's more central to the actual initial community that we have. So if you think about it, Richardson Flat is an appendage, as opposed to how can we still use our Ross Creek 10 acres to pull in, you know, Deer Springs, Deer Waters, you know, Shoreline, the central portions of the town claim across the street, and provide some amenities that are here and that provide community, as well as the potential for, you know, school, church, etc., another larger town center in Richardson Flat. So then it'll be incumbent upon us to pull that together as a town to make sure any annexations we do now and in the future are, you know, coordinated, and they make sense and they build upon one another. Otherwise, we'll have a very discombobulated town here and disjointed, you know, and I don't think it'll be as interesting as a place to live, and people won't feel part of the community. So how we do this is going to be a challenge, and it's going to be how we paint our vision going forward. So in terms of surveying, surveys are good. We can over survey, but or under survey. I think we're doing pretty good on that. And maybe we should do one, you know, within this next 12-month period, and broaden it out a bit, because we'll have additional annexation information. That's my 2 cents and what I'd like to do going forward.
All right, thanks, Ralph. Any council members have questions or comments for Ralph?
It seems to me that every survey we've taken has pointed to, we want more, we want commercial, restaurant, bodega, that kind of thing, and pointed away from residential. And even though this was focused on Ross Creek, the results seem to me consistent.
We always seem to focus on food and drink, right? And socializing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're all social. Yeah.
Those are definitely
Anyway.
common themes.
Yeah. What I want to applaud is all the comments we got. I mean, you know, in our last survey, you know, I have to applaud the town for showing up, all the folks that, you know, participated in this, and got a lot of great comments. You know, we all have different opinions about things, but I thought we have a great town of really educated, knowledgeable, interested folks. And sometimes, occasionally, these kinds of events draw the best out of us. And I thought this one drew the best out of our townsfolk. That was my opinion anyway. And Jonathan, you were there, and Carol was there. So anything you want to add to what we did get out of this? Maybe one of the most important things we did.
From my perspective, the message is clear, and that, you know, going forward, I want to carry out what the public has told us they want.
All right, well, thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work around the Ross Creek Open House. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6. This is where we're going to roll up our sleeves and get down to business. So it's consideration of adopting ordinance 2025, and then there's a number regarding business license expiration and making conforming edits to the business license section of the Hideout Municipal Code. Now, is this a Jan item? Is Jan on?
No, she's not on tonight.
Okay.
I think Polly and I can.
Yeah, this is more, Alicia, do you want to explain it and I can do backup?
Sure. So, with business licenses, and us allowing short-term rentals in certain areas, our code, I started reviewing our code and it doesn't explicitly say when business licenses expire. There was some inconsistencies and things like that. And so I would like to make it so that it's a rolling calendar. So they expire 12 months after they were issued. The reason being is a lot of our short-term rentals, they come in, at the end of the year or right before ski season in October and get their business licenses renewed. And then if they expire on December 31st, then, they have to redo everything on January 1st and for the next 2 months. I mean, it's so they're double doing things. And so I just kind of wanted to make this very clear that it is 12 months after they are issued. And then the conforming edits, I think there was one piece of the code that did say that they expired on December 31st, regardless of when they were issued. And I think that we wanted just to remove that section. So they all expired 12 months after they were issued. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Alicia, how many business licenses do we have in town right now?
Oh, well, we're kind of in the renewal period right now, so I don't have a very good count, but really
Do
only.
you know how many we had last year?
Let me look at
Order of magnitude,
Yeah, let me look at my numbers really quick here. So last year I had 21. This year I've only got so far 8. So, like I said, we're in renewal season right now. So, and I've been telling everybody just to kind of hold off for a second until I got this passed, hopefully. So that way they didn't have to renew in the middle of their license period. So.
Okay, anybody have any comments about the edits to this ordinance? So we're striking some language and indicating that the business license shall be issued for a period not to exceed 12 months from the date of issuance. So it's basically an annual license.
I have a thought, perhaps you want to add language to say that the business license shall be good for 12 months and then it shall automatically expire without notice. That way, the holder of a license understands that in no uncertain terms, it's only good for 12 months and it'll go away. And we don't have a duty to remind you that it has expired.
That's a good point. There is a duty, however, to remind some licenses. Short-term rentals are one of those that I do need to remind. However, home-based businesses, I do not.
Well, if we're required to give them notice, then never mind.
Yeah, it would have to fall under 2 different sections of the code on when I would need to give notice or not. And depending on the legislative session, that might change. Who knows?
What's the charge for a business? What is our charge for a business license? I know what the state charges.
It's a mere $83.
Hmm.
I know we're making bank on these.
Alicia, do you have any, well, since we only have 8 or 12 or whatever you said, is it an easy process, administrative process to keep track of these and know when they are coming due?
Right now it is. I keep everything on an Excel spreadsheet and I can just, you know, it's very organized in my world. And so, but you know, as we get bigger and more commercial and or more businesses, I should say, and more short-term rentals, that might have to change to some sort of software, you know, but we can cross that bridge when we get there. So.
Okay. All right, Polly, do you have anything to add? I mean, clearly you made these changes to the ordinance. That doesn't sound like, I mean, Jonathan had proposed a change and then you just withdrew it, Jonathan. So, are we ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you.
I'll move that we adopt it as written.
Okay, thank
I'll
you,
second it.
Jonathan. All right, thanks, Ralph. Carol,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Chris, yes. Okay, thank you. Good discussion. Appreciate it, Alicia. Thanks for presenting.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the last rolling up our sleeves business is authorization for the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement for the public works vehicles not to exceed $65,000. Did we let Dan go? Who will be presenting this one? I am not prepared to present this as Mayor Pro Tem, but can someone speak to it?
I know a little bit about it, but I was waiting for Polly to help me out here.
Polly, can you help us? And Polly, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was having some technical issues there. I was trying to speak. For some reason, I can't unmute if my video is on. It doesn't let me turn it on and off. So yeah, I know a little bit about this. My understanding is that Public Works, I can't remember, they had a good reason why they needed new vehicles. Might have just been that the old ones were getting too old, or they just need to expand based on needs with plowing and whatnot. And so they were going to update the lease agreement with the same group that we had leased from before. And that company needed us to basically update our resolution. So it's kind of similar requirements as before. It's very similar to what you saw. Alicia, remind me when this was adopted the last time. I think it was in August or something,
Yeah, it
or
was.
April.
Yeah.
I think this matter has been noticed up as authorizing the mayor to spend up to 65,000 to purchase a truck. I don't know that, are we properly noticed to talk about leasing?
So I think we're actually doing a buyout is how I understood it. We're buying the truck from the leasing company.
That's right.
Is it the 2023 Dodge Ram 2500? Because that's the one that's under $65,000.
So it would be, there was some bid sheets in there. And I think that the total with the flatbed was like 57 something. We decided to round it up a little bit just in case there was anything that came up that, you know, it needed new tires or whatever. I'm asking Daniel if he can jump back on real quick because he
Yeah,
knows about
Yeah,
this.
and
I think he
I'm
has
sorry,
to.
I apologize. I'm just coming back on this one, but yeah, we're buying out for a vehicle. So
Which vehicle is it? Is it the Ram 3500? Is it the Ram 2500? Which vehicle are we trying to buy out? I mean, these are the vehicles in the exhibit. I mean, which one of these are we trying to buy?
Daniel's coming back on right now.
All right, sorry.
That's okay.
If we had known, if we had thought about this, we would have done this earlier, before we let Daniel go. All right.
Daniel, we're discussing the lease agreement purchase for the truck. Can you answer some questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Which vehicle, Daniel, are you attempting to purchase? Or wanting to purchase?
With Katie and Carrie, talking to them, we feel like it would be best to start a purchasing program instead of leasing. So I was gonna trade out 2 of the lease trucks and buy two instead of paying to rent trucks. We'd own them, and then when we sell them, we get whatever we're selling them for. So it'd just be 2 of the trucks that we have now going back to lease and buying 2, and then the following year I would trade one in of the leases and buy one and do that until all the trucks were owned by the town instead of being leased.
So you would be buying these the VIN numbers we currently lease, or would you be buying some other VIN?
No, we would trade those VINs in. The ones that we have currently would be traded back or given back to the lease company.
Okay.
And then we would buy from the state contract from the dealership in Heber through the state contract. We would buy 2 trucks and then outfit them the way we want them and make them what we really want instead of having to baby them and not be able to put what we want on them because they're not our trucks.
Okay, and so this is the beginning of a program you mentioned? This would be the start
That's
of it?
kind of what I'm hoping. Whether it's 1 or 2, I mean, I'm not like gonna be all heartbroken if it's you guys say, well, we can do 1, but 2 of them, if we let go of 2 of the leases and buy 2 trucks, then we're starting the process of no longer being renters, we're owning the truck. And in 5 to 7 years, depending on what they look like in that time, then you can turn them over. And in a 5-year period, you're turning those 2 trucks over, you're selling them and buying 2 more on this program with the state. So the trucks that we were looking at, if you were to go in and buy them, they were roughly about $69,000, 68,000 something, almost $69,000.
Mhm.
But with the state contract, we can get them down to 58. That's, they're not the bare bones, but they're not what I would go buy myself. They're a nice truck. They're going to do what we need. They have the auxiliary ports and stuff on them so we can run lights and extra lights for plows and all of that stuff that needs to be ran is in that package that we got. And this is the package that the dealership down there gives for Heber and Midway and all of them. This is what they run.
Okay, and so this is the amount not to exceed 65,000. So it sounds like you could only get 1 truck, right?
So each truck, I don't know on that. I know that each truck is, I want to say 58 is what it was, if I remember correctly. So we would be trading in 2 of our lease trucks and buying 2 trucks at 58 each, I think is what would be.
So this authorization is for the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement for the public works vehicles not to exceed $65,000. So it's $65,000. Does that mean $65,000 per vehicle? Not
That
to
would make
exceed?
sense to me,
This
yes.
means? Polly, can you help? Is that what this means?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of came in late to this whole process. So if it's, I'm just looking at the,
You're looking at
I'm just looking at some old, some, yeah. Um, so, 'cause I
And while
think,
Polly's looking that up, Dan, is there some urgency here because of renewing the leases by us? Is that what we're, the
Yeah,
reason this is in this council meeting now is because there's some urgency?
yes, there's urgency based on I have to turn these other trucks in June. And if
Okay.
we don't order the ones from the Dodge dealer within the next few weeks, we'll be short trucks because we won't get the ones from, these are being built by Dodge. So they're not just something I go down to the dealership and get. So they're ordered and they have to be shipped. So it takes time for me to get them.
and Dan,
So
you're
if we don't
looking
get
to
them
get,
ordered, we
you're
won't
look,
get them in time.
and you're looking to get 2 trucks now, and then,
Who would be
th-
the best? That way we can start this process of being owners of trucks and not renters. Because right now, renting them, we can't, if we do anything or put anything on them, we either have to take it off or they get that for free. Or if we drill a hole that they didn't want, we get charged for it. If we own them and we want to put a light bar on it, we can put a light bar on it. And when we sell it, it's just what it is. We're not
yeah,
having to pay a fine or a fee to this leasing company that wants a perfect truck when they get it back. Well, they're work trucks. They're not perfect trucks. So we put light bars on them and stuff. And it'd be better to own them than it would be to keep renting them. And
yeah,
I
no,
think
that makes a lot of sense. I just
Katie
want to
said
make
financially it
sure.
makes more sense too.
So just what, I guess what was presented to me to review was kind of the refinancing documents, and I think what is in the packet is just really the refinancing documents with the lease company for the remaining trucks that you're not turning in. And
Correct. We will
then
keep that.
and then you're asking for, it looks like we asked for $60,000, which would just cover 1 truck. And
Right.
then you'll need to come back, I guess, and ask, I didn't realize that we were asking for 2 trucks. So I think council, since it's kind of a related topic, you could increase that amount for 2 trucks if you deem that appropriate.
Has somebody from fiscal done an analysis as to whether it's cheaper to buy or lease these trucks?
Katie and Carrie both have been working with me on this, and Katie's pushed really hard for us to get out of leasing these trucks. She does not like it in any way. We're spending a lot of money on these leases, and in the end, we get nothing.
So it's cheaper for us to buy them than lease them? Is that the conclusion?
In the end, yeah.
Okay.
Right now, maybe up front, no. But I know this is a Carrie question because she's way smarter than I ever thought of being when it comes to this. The way she explained it to me is however they write it off per year by buying it. So it's different than leasing it. And so
Well,
buying the trucks,
yeah, I mean, you can depreciate
correct,
purchased items.
right?
So leasing is, you can't use that. So, do we have any, that would be great if we had some input from either of them directly.
Yeah, and like I
So,
said, if we go too much longer, if we go into March, I'm gonna have to push this to next year because I can't go without trucks because the leases I have to turn in June, and if I turn them in June, I can keep these leases for another year. That's
mhm,
the thing. We can keep these leases for up to 5 years.
mhm.
But the longer we keep them, the more things that they don't like when we turn them in, we either have to fix them or we take a loss when we turn them in and we're paying X amount of dollars. Like the one truck that was turned in was wrecked. I didn't know it was wrecked because it wasn't one of my guys' trucks. It was another truck. He took it in, he turned it in, he dropped it off on his own. We ended up paying $5,000 for that truck to be fixed. And I didn't know that. And so every time one of these trucks gets damaged, we either turn it into insurance and get it fixed or we pay them to fix it. And we're getting nothing. We're getting nothing out of them. So the was a good idea for a minute, but as a town, it makes more sense for us to move forward buying trucks and have our own fleet of trucks that we're turning around and selling.
Yeah, this discussion should have occurred, in my opinion, last month. We're too close.
I apologize, Ralph, but I didn't have prices on trucks until just now. And this is all predicated on Dodge. I had Dodge and Ford and Chevy give their numbers to these state contractors when they're done, when they're ready. And none of them had them ready until like 2 weeks ago, practically, really. And so
Yeah.
I
I'm not
apologize.
I'm not putting it no
Numbers.
blame to be assigned, just saying that this, this probably would have been a better discussion. And having the mayor as the chief administrator and CEO of the town, plus maybe weighing in with Katie, I think would have been a better discussion in my opinion. I hate to be asked to vote on something to this magnitude when we're kind of forced in the last minute. So
Well, it's
it's
up
just
to you guys. I can keep the trucks for another year and we can visit this next year, but we're gonna, as far as price wise, you're gonna get the price about the same time as you do this year, because that's how Dodge, Ford, and Chevy work with state contracts. They take their time because they're giving you such a discount.
yeah. And so my last comment, I really appreciate your input. I would have expected someone like the mayor or or Katie to help us just go through the financial mechanics here a little bit more. So
Yeah, and I can't help with that.
yeah, I know that. So you know, and
One thing I can say is that in terms of the price of the trucks, I think you're talking about leasing versus buying. So for someone to explain that, and yeah, that's a finance kind of discussion.
and
it is a
it impacts, yeah, Polly, what we do in general across multiple vehicles or investments, and whether you depreciate versus you pay, you pay a annual charge. So different movement of money. And
right.
I'd love to have at least Katie weigh in here.
Okay, and just so you know, I just wanted to point out that the purchase price of the trucks is such that if it's part of a state contract, that is exempt from purchasing, we don't have to do an RFP or anything like that, or bid, because it's a set price that the state's approved.
Yeah, I remember going through that with, one of our previous conversations. So yeah. Um, are you going to ask for a vote here?
It's up to you guys. If
If someone would like to make a motion is this where we have to do a motion, Polly?
Yes.
Authorize the mayor. If someone would like to make a motion, we can see how it goes. All right, I don't hear anyone making a motion to move this forward.
Well, you could also do a motion to continue it. You could do a motion to table it to next year.
Well,
I'd make a motion to continue this to the next, to the next meeting, because I do think it's important, especially for saving money. I just don't feel like I have, again, the best information here. Dan, you've done a great job to explain it to your level, but I'd like to go one layer deeper on the how does this affect the budget? What does this mean? What's the value? So I didn't quite hear that in this conversation.
I'll second that motion.
wait, was that a motion?
Yeah, that was a motion to carry it to the next meeting.
Okay,
As soon as we can get better information, I would say we move on it one way or the other.
all right, so I hear it's a motion to continue this discussion to our next regular meeting. And Jonathan, you seconded it?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Carol,
Yes.
Chris, yes. Ralph
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll bring it back in a month, and hopefully we will then get the financial analysis to go with it so that we can all, and the budget impact so that we can all feel comfortable. Dan, I would say we're not opposed to this. We just didn't have enough information in tonight's meeting.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I believe we have finished our regular agenda items, and we're on to committee updates. So, Planning Commission, Thomas.
Sure. So the Planning Commission is going to be meeting next week instead of the regular meeting date of the 20th, Thursday. They're going to meet on the 18th, and they'll hear the Elkhorn Springs concept plan. There's a revised concept plan based on Planning Commission input from last month, and they'll also hear the Wild Horse development, which has come back with a revised concept plan for the development between the Claim project and the and Bill Wolf's property. And those are the only two projects that are coming back. Both are concept plan reviews, and then we have a special Planning Commission meeting scheduled for March 4th to potentially hear the rezonings and or MDAs for those projects.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Any questions for Thomas before we move on? Okay, Economic Development Committee, Ralph.
Yeah, not a lot to report, and I've been traveling for the past 12 days, and I think there was a meeting on Monday that I was not able to attend, and I believe that was with Wright Development. Also, Jan's not on the line, and I think Jan set that meeting up with her professor, Brandon Duke, who was supposed to provide some additional advice, who I'd love to talk to as well. And so that was one thing. And if Jonathan, you were attending that meeting, I'd love to hear what you had. I asked Jan if she was going to attend and she'd have any input, because we'd love to hear that, or I'll touch bases with her separately, but for public comment here, if you have anything to add. Number two, so I'll go back to that in a second, but number two, there was some information shared previously in the meeting that Benlock, I believe, is asking for, or they're interested in annexation again with a new owner. According to what I have, Jeremy Rick, the new landowner, is making the kind of rebid to us. So I haven't seen what that means and what his view is. So I'm sure he plans to come back through the Economic Development Committee And then you heard a lot about what the Ross Creek survey data was, so don't have to go back over that. Jonathan, did you get any input from Monday's meeting that you'd like to
You
share?
know, the only thing that I could add is there was a kind of a consensus that given the we're in, we're out, we're in, we're out history of the Benlock project, that we thought that we would just meet with them informally and say, hey, what is it you're looking for? And just give us a complete list rather than go back and forth. And, let's just try to understand exactly what they want and why they want to join Hideout and leave, the unincorporated part of the county, and just kind of short circuit it instead of, before they come formally, try to understand what it is they're seeking.
Yeah, and I think what the information that I had from Jan's note was Jeremy Rick, the gentleman who's taken over Benlock, does spec homes in California, and is partnering with someone who does resort communities. So I'm with you. We need to understand what Jeremy and his team is looking to accomplish, in the new Benlock. Are they interested in making any changes, and why are they coming to us? Why is he coming to us, and why does he feel that we're going to be beneficial to him? So we've got some homework to do on that one.
All right. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, moving on to next, it's Parks, Open Space and Trails Post Committee. Afraid I don't have much to report. The Post Committee's been quiet for the last month or so. We're going to be meeting again next week and continuing discussions about we have grants that was already awarded. We have work to plan to try to accomplish and get completed this summer with the state park. And then I think we were possibly talking about other grant opportunities, wildlife fencing. And as I think I mentioned in the last meeting, I'm not sure if I did or not, but we had two post committee members, Kathleen and John, who spent a great deal of time putting like driveway stakes along the single track in Ross Creek. So that would be the Keatley and Waterway trails. And they were intended to be markers for whenever the snow came so that the trail could be groomed. Someone who perhaps a well-meaning citizen or someone not affiliated with either the post committee or the park or having anything to do with our project picked up all of those stakes and threw them in a pile or various piles around. So they all that work was undone, and that was a couple of weekends of work. So I think our lesson learned there is perhaps further outreach to the community to let them know what's happening in the park, maybe some signage, something to let people know that, what they did, even though it may have been well-meaning, was actually vandalism from our perspective. And we don't want that to happen again. Otherwise, we are not going to waste time trying to make an amenity for the community that is easy to access, and you just need to enter the park, pay your day use fee or use your pass, come in there. And we were going to groom single track this year. Now, until today, we haven't had much snow. I'm not really sure how much snow we're going to get and how long it'll last. But that grooming effort is not going to happen this winter as a result. So that's kind of the bummer announcement about the committee. But we are going to move forward and continue to work on this joint project with the state park, which includes an additional trail that's already been cut by the state park. It's going to be finished this year, and that trail, it's going to have road base on it. It's meant to get people off of the paved roadway, especially during the winter months when people need to be able to drive down that paved roadway, which gets plowed without people being on it. So, we're still working with the state park, and we're going to continue to do that. That's my update. I think I might have additional things a month from now. All right, with that, the Transportation Committee, Carol.
I don't have a whole lot to report other than Richardson Flat parking area has been very well utilized. It was used quite a bit during Sundance, and it was used a lot just last weekend during World Cup. And then people are using it for skiing. So it's not in Hideout, but it's close. And I think our residents are utilizing it. That's about it.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, we're going to move on to the item number 7, which is approval of council minutes. So there are 2 sets of minutes in the packet. One is from the December 12th, 2024 council meeting, and the other one is from the January 9th, 2025 council meeting, which was just last month. Does any council member have any feedback on the minutes?
I will just say that I thought they were excellent. I did read them line by line as I usually do, and they were beautifully presented. That's all I have to say. There were nothing to make corrections on.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else have anything to say about the minutes? All
They're
right.
great.
They're great.
I'd agree with Carol and
They're
say,
spectacular.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Alicia. Jonathan, anything?
No, nothing for me. I thought they were just fine.
Okay, terrific. So Polly, can we do a motion that includes both of the minutes in one motion, or do we have to do them separately?
I would do them separately.
Okay,
But you don't have to do a roll call vote. You could just do
all in favor?
all in favor, yeah.
Okay. All right, can I get a motion to approve the December 12th, 2024 Hideout Town Council meeting minutes?
I'll move.
Okay,
I'll
thanks,
second.
Carol. Second, Ralph? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that was 4 ayes. Okay, so the four yeses. Okay, now can I get a motion to approve the January 9th, 2025 Hideout Town Council meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Jonathan. Thanks, Ralph. Carol? Oh,
Yes.
sorry, all in favor? Sorry, I'm losing it. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. And the motion carried unanimously. And the last item is follow-up items from approved minutes. Does anyone have anything, follow-up items that they want to bring up to discuss?
I have a lot, Chris, and I'm usually the person who is going through the minutes, making sure we do follow-ups, which I think is one of the most critical things that we do as a group and as a council. So, and that's why I do that. However, I don't want to take this meeting into the next millennium by doing that. And I thought about this, and I thought that, as a result of me picking through the minutes as usual and coming up with action items that I think are really critical, like financial follow-ups, which is in the first set of minutes. We absolutely need to have that. So, Alicia, you've done a fabulous job of capturing some of those. I'm just wondering if it would be better for each of us potentially to highlight those, call it in the yellow highlight, in a yellow highlighter or something of that nature, going into this meeting with comments like you would typically do in a Word document or in a Teams document, and so that we can move through this more quickly and we can, pull the action items together in a more, in a faster, more efficient fashion. So that's my thought. I thought about this because I'm going, I don't want to hold everyone up from, kind of retiring at this point, but there's so many important things in those minutes that we need to capture. So I'm willing to go back and before the next meeting and just pull out my highlighter, so to speak, which I've already done. And rather than doing this verbally, I can even work with Alicia and bring this, kind of the next set of action items, which could be a list, Alicia, that we've been doing kind of in a table format. And then we would just, bring those up in the next meeting. But I'll leave it to the rest of the group here to determine how they would like to follow up on action items. And because I'm going to keep doing that no matter what.
Ralph, I love the fact that you're keeping track of this. What we need is kind of
tracker.
a track. We need a tracker. We need a tracker of the follow-up items where we can step through them at the end of the meetings or whenever this follow-up item. But we need something to look at because I can't carry all these things in my memory, and I don't know if anybody else can. Maybe you all can, but I can't. I need to be looking at a tracker. So how do we want to approach that? Ralph, you sound like you already created your own personal tracker.
Well, I mean, here's what I do. And again, I don't want to belabor this too much. I actually read this into a document reader that I can rewrite notes over, or I can circle things, I can highlight stuff. And I have my own I have my own way to identify pieces of the minutes that I believe need follow-up action items on. And that's how I do it. We have a Teams, we pay for Microsoft Teams, and we can do some of that within that context where we can do offline comments. I don't know, Polly would have to weigh in because we did this at the planning commission when we first bought Teams, and we were doing an active, what I would call, comments in the document, and then people would share that. Don't know how, I think that's all legal. It was at that point, but we could do it that way, or we could just create a table where we would extract certain comments in the minutes and pull those out into a table, then which we would look at in relation, at each meeting in relationship to each draft minutes. So that's some ideas that I had. Alicia, you were working really well on exactly that. You had your set of table follow-ups and identifying those action items. So I would look for some thoughts on this. And do we have any limitations, Polly, on what we can do for?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if it's just kind of a list, I think your latter idea of just having like a list ongoing, and if you wanted to communicate with Alicia directly, you could do that. But if we have kind of a collaborative document, I worry that it kind of almost creates a meeting within the document with a quorum. So I think if we do it, just maybe we put together the document and then Alicia can send it out and people can respond to her directly instead of to the whole team.
Well, I'm thinking at that point, if we had a table and we contributed to our own separate little items, if we had any before this meeting, and then Alicia then assembled them individually from each one of us, and that became part of the record for the meeting.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I could do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, so I'll be glad to do that. And that reduces our overhead time for going through follow-ups on, but which are critical, in terms of what we do and how we follow up on things. And maybe that's just going to be a lot of me. I don't know. But it should be everyone. So I'll be glad to do that on these minutes and prepare them for the next meeting, so we don't have to, elongate this meeting.
I think we have to come up with a workable solution, Ralph. I like your suggestion, but we do have to ensure we're not having a meeting. You know, we cannot use a collaborative workspace to do this as a council. We have to be out in public.
Yeah, so if we each individually had any action items, they would go into a common table that Alicia would prepare. There's no collaboration on that. Each individual is responsible for their own action items. And then when we get to this meeting, we'd see everything compiled together in relationship to any minutes that we're voting on and follow-ups. And so there wouldn't be any pre-collaboration. It would strictly be what you determine as your action items, and Alicia would just assemble them. So again, Polly, does that meet what the
Yes.
legal arrangements?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I heard,
that's what I'm proposing. So, yeah.
Ralph, can you work with Alicia, you know, outside the meeting and get that worked out? That's what you're proposing. I think I heard her agree, but I would like you guys to work on this together, and then
Well,
yeah.
it's my response. It's certainly each individual's responsibility. If no one else cares about, you know, going through it and coming up with action items, then I'll just work with Alicia. But we can formulate how this is kind of done, and then you know, everyone else can participate in providing their you know, their follow-up items to Alicia. So I don't want to be the only one necessarily, but I'll be glad to lead this.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. I honestly still wrapping my head around it. I think I would agree. We're all responsible. If we have items to follow up, we need to bring them up, as you do every week. You come
And
prepared.
I think we all do occasionally in here. We'll see something that really hits our mind as, oh God, we really should follow up on that. So
Yes.
it leaves the responsibility of everyone to send in their 2 or 3 things that they picked out of their review of the minutes. Send that to Alicia, you
Okay.
know, hopefully 48 hours beforehand, and she assembles that into a table, and then we can review that as part of item 8, in this case, follow-up items.
That sounds good. No, Ralph, I think I've got it now. I'm good. Alicia does, you know, we do get the call for agenda items. I think that's the time for you to make sure, for each of us to make sure anything that we want to talk about is made known then, as far as discussion, right? And that's what we're looking for, Ralph, right? Discussion on the follow-up items that you'd like to have in the council meeting.
And there may not be any discussion. It may just be, we need to do this, and we agreed to do this. We're you know, kind of capturing that in our follow-ups here. So,
Okay, sounds good.
Some will have a discussion, some won't.
Okay. Okay. Any more follow-up items from the approved minutes? If not, we will go to the meeting adjournment.
Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I say one thing really quick before we adjourn?
Yes.
Just want to remind everybody they need to take that Open Public Meetings Act training that I emailed you. I haven't gotten very many back yet, and it takes 5 minutes. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you keeping us on track.
No problem.
Yeah, that's a really quick video. I mean, it's a fast-paced video. I did actually take it.
You
on
did,
time,
yes.
without
You did.
needing to be reminded 2 or 3 times. So thank you, Alicia, for doing that for us.
You're welcome.
And if anyone has any questions about any of the concepts, please let me know.
Yeah, and I also saw the fraud risk questionnaire, and pardon me, I mean, I've been traveling for almost 12, 13 days straight here. so I
Ugh.
may have missed a couple of things, but I did see these before this meeting. The OPMA training, and isn't the fraud risk questionnaire? You also asked for that? Am I mistaken or not?
I did, yes. And if you have turned it in already, you can disregard, but we don't know because it went directly to our auditor. So I don't know who's turned
Oh,
it in,
okay.
who hasn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, that was the one bad thing, I guess, about having it just turned directly into Ben was that we don't know who's turned it and who hasn't. So, but it is required and he is asking for it. So.
Can Ben tell you who he received it from, Alicia?
I'm sure that he could. I don't typically talk to Ben a whole lot. He usually works with Carrie and Jan.
Okay.
So I could, I could find out in a very roundabout way, but I thought I'd let you guys be responsible for that yourself first.
Okay,
So
that sounds good.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other public service announcements for us? All right. Okay, with that, Ralph, I think you were going to make a motion.
I made the motion. I'll make another motion to adjourn this.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Jonathan. Carol?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Chris? Yes. Thank you, everyone. Good night, safe travels, enjoy the snow.